If you're like me, you're incredibly busy. You have to manage tasks on your list, but also make time to continue driving brand awareness by marketing. Most of us do this via content creation of some type. But where do you find the time? So far this year, I've produced almost 100 podcast episodes for my clients and my own business. I'm consulting on marketing and business ideas with clients. I produce videos for their client websites and social media channels. Oh, and I'm dealing with my own internal administrative issues of running my own small business. Does this sound familiar? The good news is I believe I have a way to help you cope with your content creation problems. There are generally two types of content creation problems. The first is ideation. What in the world am I actually going to write about today? The second is consistency. How do I make sure I'm staying consistent on all my marketing properties, my website, Facebook, LinkedIn, and many more? It can begin to feel kind of overwhelming. COPE stands for create once and publish everywhere. Think of it as repurposing your content, but is it really that simple? Well, it depends. Carving out time to sit down and write content can take a lot of time. This is a luxury you may not have, especially if you're balancing it with all the other responsibilities we mentioned earlier. This is a primary reason I've become such a proponent of podcasting. It's much easier to simply talk about a topic. When we sit down to write an article, we constantly fight that urge to self-edit, and it really slows down the process. However, when my client and I sit down for a podcast session, a natural conversation develops. We can cover a topic in much more detail in a fraction of the time that it would take to actually sit down and write about it. Generally speaking, if I were to transcribe that podcast episode, it could be multiple pages long. I mean, think about it. How many paragraphs does a 15 or 30-minute conversation really contain? Creating podcast content is a great way to cope with your content creation problems. Now let's go on to the next step in the solution. It's very easy to upload podcast content to your website, Facebook page, LinkedIn profile, and even your YouTube channel. You might decide that you prefer to extract snippets of the overall episode and then cross-post them to your social media channels. Whether you post the entire episode or simply snippets, the process just became much more efficient than trying to come up with separate articles and posts for each channel. More importantly, podcasting enables you to cope with your content creation problems in a different way. Let me explain. Let's talk about making your content stick. If you really want someone to remember what you said, you need to anchor it to an emotion. Because podcast is audio-based, your vocal inflection, your personality, even your sense of humor stands out. People can easily connect with your voice much more so than just a dry article that you wrote. While podcast content is efficient, it's also emotive. This leads to a much more impactful way for you to promote your product or service. Unless you tend to type in all caps, text-based content is pretty monotone, and that's why it's forgettable. To recap, busy professionals often struggle to commit time to producing marketing content. Podcasting enables you to develop deep content. It integrates easily with your marketing channels and platforms, thus allowing you to be more consistent, and it's a much more impactful way to help you cope with your marketing creation problems. Sound interesting? If you'd like to explore the idea of creating a podcast for your business, I can help. I produce them for clients on a regional basis, so you don't have to be located right here in Louisville to work with me. Take a few minutes to visit my podcast production services page on my website. You'll be able to watch a few videos about how and why podcasting is something you should strongly consider. Your competition is still trying to steal your clients. If you're not actively marketing, you may be conceding. Let's make it easier for you to stay in front of your target audience and to grow your business.